Get informed on what is happening in our political scenes and people who are making headlines in different parts of the country and the world, right here at TAS TV. Join me, LAVIN NYAGOWA, as I bring to you weekly news highlights that are factual every Friday at 4 o'clock. See you then.
Katika kipindi tunakuletea wasanii.
What's up my guys, I go by the name Rainams.
Eti nikipita kwa macho na nipimia, na kama sina pesa unguwezi nipimia, hapa Shenster the Poet manze.
Ngoma moto moto.
If you wanna show some love I don't fake it. Hey, kumenya mawazo makuu nani anadera shule warutani waku
Vichekesho mkisongaza mahojiano moto moto, stori za wasanii pamoja na talanta za wasanii.
Fiki wa kazi gani kama wapatikani wakati wa shida.
Na pia kwenye kipindi utabambika, utajijenga, utaelimika, utakuza talanta yako.
My name is Rebecca Mutie, I'm a model and I'm Afri Kenya. I'm a student. Napenda kusikiza kipindi cha Bonga na Katoni kila Jumatatu kuanzia saa 9 mpaka saa 10.
Kumbuka ni kwenye Bonga na Katoni ndani ya TAS TV kuanzia saa 9 hadi saa 10 kila siku ya Jumatatu.
This is Bonga na Katoni in TAS TV. Karibuni.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to yet another beautiful episode of the Morning Digest. And on today's episode, we're talking about values and the future of, the learners. So in case you're joining us today, thank you so much for choosing TAS TV. Remember to follow us across all social media platforms. That is at TAS TV_KE on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. TAS TV on Facebook, TAS TV Official on YouTube, and www.tastv.co.ke on our website. Thank you so much for being here today, and as always we have our amazing guest. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, LAVIN. For
yes.
those who are watching this morning or afternoon, wherever you are.
Yes.
I'm McDonald Wakoli, an educational expert.
Yes, okay. So just to jump straight into what we are talking about today, McDonald, we are talking about values in education, and of course the future of the learners or students. So talking about education values, do you believe education shapes the values of students? And if so, what role does it play in fostering a sense of morality and of course ethics?
Yeah, thank you, LAVIN, for that question.
Yes.
Maybe just to lay the foundation, it's important we understand first what is values.
Values, exactly.
I know there are parents watching or there are students watching and other stakeholders in education.
Yes.
And this discussion is going to help us understand some of the critical aspects that are happening in the education sector. Now, values can be considered as standard or moral principles.
Yes.
Or it can also be considered in terms of what is important to someone's life. So when you look at it in that way, of course, education system is changing. That's something, again, that we need to note. We are moving from where the teacher define what a learner is supposed to know, from now the learner defining what his or her interest is, and now the teacher's work is basically to act as a mentor or a coach in the journey of the learner. So we cannot actually fail to discuss values. Values is a big thing that we need to look into, and of course, the education system over time has shaped values, have shaped the belief system of people to know what is, of course, of importance, what is right, what is not right. Of course, the education system have played a critical role.
Yeah.
But for now, going forward, it's going to be a bit of mix. Student will be able to define what is value, and of course the education system also be able to do that. So overall, of course, it will have an implication on ethics, which is the moral standard or the code of behavior in the general society or the general life of a student.
Okay, so in today's world where things are, you know, rapidly changing, what are some of the most important, or rather the core values that are important for us for each and every student or learner to have?
Now, from where I sit as an education expert, there are key values that are in the, of course, we are talking of the 21st century learners.
Yes.
Of course, they need to have resilience as one of the values, which is very key. Remember, of course, things are changing very fast. There are so many disruptions in the day-to-day operation, even be it in a learning environment or in the society. So resilience is something that is key. There's aspect of sharing. It's a value that is not very commonly stated outside there. But remember, looking at the way we are shifting the learning system to be from the teacher to the student or to the learner, there's a lot of interaction between student-student interaction. And sharing is something that is very key when it comes to that aspect of value. But also this aspect of compassion. Remember, there's a lot of disruption that is happening in the society. So we need to instill these values, values of compassion, like you feel the other person without, of course, you being sympathetic, but you put yourself in that other person's shoe. That's a value that we need to start inculcating into the learner as early as they are actually in their kindergarten. But also we can talk of honesty, we cannot overemphasize. Honesty is another thing. Remember, if you look at the current learners we are dealing with, of course, there are people with a very quick response to gratification. They want instant gratification. So if we don't cultivate the aspect of honesty, there will be a lot of compromising. But last but not least, we can also look at the aspect of gratitude. Gratitude, being grateful. That value is very key, and we cannot overemphasize it. Of course, in the generation we're living in, again, we are actually running short of people who are grateful, people who appreciate the small beginnings, and of course are able to walk through that particular journey until reaching the top. So gratefulness is another value that need to be emphasized a lot.
Okay, so you have mentioned some of the core values that you feel students are supposed to possess. So you've mentioned resilience, sharing, there's critical thinking, honesty, and being grateful. So how then do educators make sure that they effectively instill these values into the students?
To me, where I sit as an educational expert, I really value the contribution teachers play, or lecturers or be trainers play in the life of this particular students. So any other time when a trainer is in class teaching, or a lecturer is in class teaching, or a teacher is in class teaching, he or she should be in a position to be inculcate those values through the practical inspirational sharing that happens in class setup. For instance, you can subject a student to a certain experience which will require compassion. And of course, by that demonstration from the grassroots level, here we are talking all the way from kindergarten, the early learning stages as you move up. So if you can make this student engage in such a kind of discussion, of course it will be able to bring about that. But I've seen also some schools have actually inculcated this as a value in their system, where a certain days of the calendar there is an aspect of sharing, and students are requested to come with some item from home. Of course, parents also provide those students with those items. Then they come and share together. So when this learner grows, the learner will appreciate the fact that, yes, I have this possession within my disposal. It's not for my advantage, but I need to sit with others and just share with them. In terms of honesty, of course, the teacher need, of course, to be open. Let the trainer or the trainee know that this is wrong. If you do this is wrong. If you do this is right. And when do you apply this kind of issues? So the trainer or the teacher or the lecturer will play a very significant role when it comes to inculcating these values.
Into the students. Okay, so that is very interesting. So let's now look at we have most institutions and even high schools having different kinds of cultural events. For high institutions of learning, we have the cultural week. For the high schools and junior high schools, we have we call them the club. I can't really remember, but nizo holidays za kuchagua Mr. and Miss Shule, Mr. and what. So like there's so much that comes with this. So what role should cultural diversity and inclusivity play in shaping the values of the future learners, and how well do educators promote these ideas and ideals?
Good. As I stated, and of course, as I shared, of course, over the time we have also discussed this.
Yeah.
Education system is changing. That's something that is really in the house, and we need to start adopting to these changes.
Yeah.
And as it is changing, of course, the value system will also change. Because again, you'll understand that the way maybe the Western people behave is not the way the Eastern people behave. But because of the education system and the way things are changing, at one point you'll be able to have all these people in the same room.
Yeah.
And you see, values are things that have been inbuilt in the person over time. And it makes them believe that this is the way things are supposed to be done. So as educators or institution, having the cultural activities happening within the school system is actually a good thing, because with that you can be able to learn that, yes, this is how I believe as a person, this is how I've been taught, this is how I've grown up knowing. But as a result of interacting with this other community, you come to appreciate the fact that there are things that they are doing which is also right, but in your case, you never knew that this how things are supposed to be done. So cultural activities within the college setup, between university or high school setting, help a lot in calculating values and making people understand that indeed you are the way you look at a certain angle of an issue might not necessarily mean that that's the entire truth of how things are supposed to be.
Okay. So all these are part and parcel of extracurricular activities that most students engage in during their period in these institutions. So how then do they contribute to the development of values, and should they be important parts of the education system?
It is very key. It is very key, especially let's say, for instance, you are doing sports. In sports like a football match, there's a lot of coordination. There's a lot of sharing. Of course, you need to pass the ball to the other person.
Need to communicate to
so
the other
that sharing aspect brings about, of course, increasing the value of sharing. But also for you to win, you need to coordinate, be resilient. You see, you have to keep on working for like 90 minutes before maybe you are declared a winner or something like that. So again, this aspect of being resilient, but also out of the extracurricular activities and things that are happening outside the normal curriculum of learning actually shapes out key values which are required actually in this century.
Okay, so looking at the balance, now we have the digital side of the world and we have the other side of the world, and most people are adapting to the digital side. So how then has technology helped with the relationship between the digital literacy and ethical values that get to be instilled in our learners?
The technology landscape, of course, we have had this discussion not once.
Not once.
Technology is here with us and we cannot run away from it. But there's something that technology is doing in terms of disruption of values. Like what AI is playing currently in the learning process. You see, in our days, of course, you could be given a question, maybe a composition, and you sit down, you think. But nowadays, of course, you give student a question which is direct, of course, they'll go into AI, ask that AI, and the AI will be able to generate within a second. So you see, that one is actually eroding the aspect of patience. It's eroding the aspect of resilience. Now, the current generation that we are raising, of course, will have some challenges in terms of telling them, you have to wait for this process to complete. Because the technology is actually disrupting. Yes, we have the positive side of it. But on the negative, the flip side, you can be able to see that what technology is doing in terms of value degradation is also significant, and we cannot, of course, run away from it. Yeah, because nowadays, if you tell a student or if you tell this particular person, I want you to do this work for 4 hours, that person will not sit down for 4 hours because the person wants to do it. Of course, put it in AI. AI will modify it within a second. Of course, the person is done, and he or she goes to other things. Unlike those days when you could sit down, of course,
do your research,
persistently, you do research and something like that. So there's a lot that is changing as a result of technology infiltration into values.
Okay, so how then can education strike the balance between, you know, preparing these students for basically the workforce and then also nurturing values and character, just to make sure things like artificial intelligence or AI do not necessarily interfere with them?
To me, maybe before I answer that, let me salute my professor. That is Dr. Masharia, Stephen Masharia. He's actually my lecturer of leadership and research in Strathmore University. One thing that he actually taught us, and something that I emulate a lot, is that as facilitators, as mentors, coaches, or trainers who are teaching these students, we need first to have paradigm shift in terms of our thinking. We need to actually equip ourselves in a way that we can be able to remodel the way in which we address these learners, the way in which we restructure our question, the way in which we restructure the ideas that we want to pass to them. That direct traditional way of asking questions should actually be the thing of the past. We need to start remodeling them. For instance, if you're asking a student what is a leader, a student will be able to go to AI and ask what is a leader, and the answers will come out. But if you ask this student to maybe come up with a model which defines a leader, the student will sit down and try to connect things together and see maybe a leader is looking something like this, and remodify it so that we are invoking the higher thinking of this particular learner. And through that, of course, there will be aspect of sharing. They will be able to share ideas here. What do you think? What's the best model of a leader? They will develop resilience. They will develop patience. They will develop aspect of teamwork. So these are things that we need to start looking at. Unlike just being the traditional way, expecting that these values that we had written in our schools will be calculated to learners.
Okay. Interesting, guys. So with that, we are headed on a very short commercial break. But guys, remember, we still have so much for you when it comes to values in the education system, and of course the future of the learner. See you guys in a bit.
Katika kipindi tunakuletea wasanii.
What's up my guys, I go by the name Reynams.
Eti nikipita kwa macho unanipimia, na kama sina pesa unguwezi nipimia. Hapa Shenster the Poet manze.
Ngoma moto moto.
If you wanna show some love, I don't fake it. Hey, ndakumenya mawazo mako. Nani anedera shire. Oh, warutani waku.
Vichekesho mkisongaza, mahojiano moto moto, stori za wasanii pamoja na talanta za wasanii.
Fiki wa kasi gani kama wapatikani wakati wa shida.
Na pia kwenye kipindi utabambika, utajijenga, utaelimika, utakuza talanta yako.
My name is Rebecca Mutie, I'm a model and I'm Afri Kenya. My student. Napenda kusikiza kipindi cha Bonga na Katoni kila Jumatatu kuanzia saa 9 mpaka saa 10.
Kumbuka ni kwenye Bonga na Katoni ndani ya TAS TV kuanzia saa 9 hadi saa 10 kila siku ya Jumatatu.
This is Bonga na Katoni in TAS TV. Karibuni.
What's your name?
My name is Kevin Kakum.
Kitui Francis.
From which school? Kenya Institute of Mass Communication.
Kenya Institute of Mass Communication.
What did you learn while at TAS TV?
Improvement of my skills in graphics, such as motion graphics, video editing, photography, also communication skills.
Camera operations, video editing, and improved my skills in graphic design.
Would you recommend anyone?
Yes, nilikuwa hapa TAS, skills zangu zili improve on communication with fellow co-workers and teamwork when doing certain projects.
Yes, new skills in photography. Communication, I have built more in communications through interaction with other colleagues or people outside there.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your attachment at TAS TV?
7.
8.
Generally, what would you say about TAS TV?
Wow, it's amazing being here.
I think this is the best place to be. Yeah.
Welcome to TAS Media Institute, the home of undiscovered talents. You will be trained by professionals who have a passion in what they do. Do not be left behind. Enroll now and become a pioneer of TAS Media Institute. We are located at Neema Plaza, 2nd floor along Kenyatta Highway in Thika Town. Life can sometimes take unexpected turns, and this family's story is no exception. When a gas explosion completely changed the course of their living, Mr. Joseph Lual and his family have been forced to face unimaginable hardships. But even in this phase of adversity, they have managed to persevere with so much resilience. And as the saying goes, adversity introduces you to yourself. Let's get the story of Mr. Joseph and his family.
So welcome to the first episode of Brain Busters. My name is Mwangi Dominic. Lotko barabara ya MKU. Tunauliza maswali tatanishi.
At TAS Media Institute, we let you discover your talent. Welcome back, guys. In case you're joining us just now, thank you so much for staying with us, for choosing to watch TAS TV. Remember, this is the Morning Digest, and the topic of the day is values in education and the future of the learner. Now, before we went on that commercial break, we were talking about technology. So then, McDonald, how can technology be leveraged positively to reinforce values in education and make sure that people do not misuse it?
Good. Thank you. Technology came, of course, to make life easier.
Yes.
And we are complicating actually the use of technology. Day in, day out. But if we mean it well for our country, and of course, if we mean it well for our education system, and of course the future of the learner, then as the facilitator at the background, we need to do a lot of work in terms of controlling what is key to these particular learners, especially at the grassroots levels. Of course, the education experts need to start developing contents which will resonate with the values which we consider very critical to our day-to-day life activity. For instance, an aspect like resilient is something that is very significant in today's generation and even generation to come. Aspect of patience, of aspect of gratitude, that's something that's very key. So we need to start developing content which are interactive, but of course behind it, of course, it is able to portray a certain value that we wanted to pass into this generation. So that any other time, instead of having pop-ups which is something that is not ethical, the way we view it as African or as the world, those become the purpose that always comes up in the screen of these particular people, in their phones, so that it's something that they can always resonate with every day of their life.
Okay, so talking about things to do with collaboration and all that, how can parents then collaborate with schools just to make sure that these values that are taught in classroom actually create a learning environment for a good, a positive learning environment for the students?
Yeah, so parents play very critical role in terms of enhancing values. And to me, what I think, of course, parents need to create a very strong link between the teacher and the parent, or the parent and the school, such that whatever the parent is communicating is actually in line with what the teacher is communicating. And over time, of course, this thing I'm sure is getting out of being the thing of the past, where a parent, of course, sit down with the learner and they start discussing a teacher. Like today, maybe the teacher took my mandazis and shared with others, and you start discussing that with a kid. Of course, you are destroying that kid. and I know nowadays that's something that's very common. Parents are very open with their kids, and they can discuss anything ranging from, of course, A to Z without any blanketing or covering of it. Yes, it's your right to talk to your kid the way you want, but again, these values will be key when you will not be there. Remember, education is the only bridge that can be able to elevate someone from the point of ignorance to the point of information. And if we can be able to work together between the parent and the institution, communicating the same thing, something that you're not sure, you can consult. Remember, a teacher is the expert in this field. So if we can be able to work as a team and, of course, communicate the same thing, we'll be able to cultivate these values, which will be very great, of great importance to the life of the learner.
Okay, so talking about communication, CBC, the CBC curriculum is really big on, students enhancing their skills, learning how to talk, being open, having this kind of discussions. So how then do, with this kind of increased standardized testing that comes with the CBC, kwa sababu they're tested at every level, from grade 3 to grade 6 to them joining high school to junior to senior high schools. How can educators ensure that that values education is not compromised in pursuit for academic excellence?
So it will go back to retooling of this education expert or the trainers in class. There is need for retooling and defining what values are critical at what point.
At what point,
I think this is very key, that we start now from the national level, we be very intentional and say, this kind of learners we are having, they will not have problem with the traditional values that we had. But what are these key values that are very critical, such that we can even incorporate into the syllabus? When we are designing the curriculum for these learners, we incorporate this as one of the things that we need out of them. Because what we are fostering very much in terms of CBC, we are fostering creativity and innovation. We are fostering the aspect of learner defining their learning path, learner defining what is important to them. But as you define what is important to them, there's a specific role that the teacher also need to define, because of course out of experience, out of knowledge and out of age, there are things that we consider significant which a learner might not be able to see where he or she is seated. And that's why they say that what an old man can be able to see while seated, a young man even standing will not be able to see. So we need this teacher, we need this trainer to actually define some of these values. And because of the diverseness kind of thing, it should start at the curriculum design level before you come to implementation.
Okay, so away from that, let's now talk about what has been affecting most people, mental health, and especially for the students, more so in high institutions of learning, that is tertiary institutions, colleges, universities. So in what ways can education adapt to address the mental health challenges that are being faced by students today, and how does this relate to instilling values such as self-care and empathy?
Good. So if you look at the education system currently, and why most of the people, most of the learners are experiencing this aspect of mental issues, as I said, of course, there are things that we have not re-emphasized a lot, like aspect of resilience. There are so many things that are changing, and no one is sitting with the learner, telling the learner, this is what is changing in your education system. This is what is changing in how we want you people to operate. You see, these things are just being done at the national level, at the county level, then it trickle down up to the classroom level. But now the learner is being at the receiving end of what has been cooked elsewhere. So the learner even doesn't understand what is happening. Today you are sitting in class, of course, expecting to do KCSE, then all of a sudden you are told, no, you are supposed to sit for grade 7, then move forward. So this, of course, affects the psychological nature of this particular learner. Remember, this person, as much as he or she is not grown up fully, but he has the full system that even that older person have. So there's a lot of disruption that is happening, and therefore, I think the way things are done, we need also to reconsider the position or the place of the learner in all the reform that you are doing, and who is at the bridge between now the reform and the information that the learner need to know in advance. Look, for instance, what happened to the learner who are positioned at grade 7 in primary level. All along, they knew that they are going to high school. They knew that, of course, their learning will happen in high school. Did anyone start somewhere and say that I want to first prepare these learners psychologically, mentally, of course, physically, just to talk to them that, you know what, these changes have taken effect because of this and that. Nothing like that. We just consider them as people at the receiving end. They need to follow instruction. They need to follow orders, which is again unfair. And it's really affecting them.
Okay, so as we look towards the future, what are some of the changes or advancements in education do you believe will significantly impact values of the next generation?
So things that are changing and the way education system is changing, of course, there's aspect of delivery. Delivery approach is at the core or at the center in terms of driving the future change. Because education system is changing from the teacher being the main person on the stage and the student being at the receiving end. This other time now we are looking at the teacher being just a passive person in class and the student being an active participant, an active, of course, being at the forefront, driving knowledge. So that mode of training, of course, is shaping a lot of things. It's shaping how the trainer or the trainee view the learning process. It's shaping how the trainee view what is important for him or her. It's shaping how the trainee view the role of a teacher. Of course, all these things are changing, and it's the most important thing that is changing. And of course, with that change, if we are not very keen, there are various values which again will emanate out of that. Because from the start we said that values is what one considers important, or the standards or practice. And if you do something continuously over time, it becomes part of you.
Okay. So guys, what is my takeaway today? There are very important values that you're supposed to possess, not just as a learner, because looking at education that does not only entail those who are in class, it entails everybody, because every day is a day to learn something new. So you need to be very grateful. You need to learn to share. You need to be very resilient. Those are some of the values that you need to possess as a human being. So thank you so much for everyone who's joined us today. Remember, the topic that we were talking about is values in education and the future of the learner. At least behave kama mtu mwenye ameenda shule kidogo. You don't have to necessarily just, Ata ile ya 1 2 3, that is something that you have learned, so you don't have to reason like somebody who's not been around people. Ata kama ujaenda shule, you've interacted with people who have been to school. So these are some of the values that you should possess as a person. So as we conclude, what would be your parting shot?
My parting shot is that value system is changing. The way education system is changing. And of course, education system shapes the values of the society.
Yes.
So as facilitators, education stakeholder, government, of course, everyone, we need to be very cognizant of what we are doing to our learners.
Yes.
This the generation will be able to depend on when it comes to the future of our nation and future of the world. Remember, of course, leaders are formed in those particular classroom settings. Leaders are formed at home. Leaders are formed in churches. So we need to be very specific of what values are of essence to the future of our learners. Yes.
Okay. So thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. Remember, this is TAS TV, and the show that we were doing is the Morning Digest. My name is LAVIN, NYAGOWA, and until we meet same time, same place next week, God bless you. Get informed on what is happening in our political scenes and people who are making headlines in different parts of the country and the world right here at TAS TV. Join me, LAVIN, NYAGOWA, as I bring to you weekly news highlights that are factual every Friday at 4 o'clock. See you then.